The single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling cast a weak, yellow-white circle of light that did not quite reach the corners of the room. It smelled like stale cigarettes and bleach, a nauseating perfume that had seeped into the very walls, into the thin, scratchy blanket on the bed, into my hair. I pulled my knees tighter to my chest, my back pressed against a flimsy headboard that shuddered every time the man in the next room coughed. This was my life now. Room 26 at the Starlight Motel. A flickering vacancy sign, my only real companion for the last 3 weeks. I had been somebody once. I had been Lily, a woman with a home in a quiet New York neighborhood, a career in marketing that I loved, and a husband I adored, a man named Sebastian. I had a best friend, Amelia, who was closer to me than a sister. Now, I was just Lily, the woman in room 26. The woman who had lost her job because she could not stop crying in meetings. The woman who had walked in on her husband and her best friend, tangled together in the sheets of our bed, the bed I had picked out. My stomach growled, a hollow, aching sound. I ignored it. I had $2.47 in my purse, enough for a coffee in the morning. Maybe. I had been rationing the crackers I bought 2 days ago. I let my head fall back and hit the particle board headboard with a dull thud. How had this happened? How could everything I built, everything I believed in, be incinerated in a single terrible afternoon? My eyes scanned the perimeter of my new kingdom, the stained brown carpet, the water-damaged ceiling, the wobbly-legged table where a fly was patiently cleaning its legs on a sticky, unidentifiable ring, and under the bed, in the deep shadow near the wall, something else. I blinked. I had not noticed it before. When I checked in, I had thrown my single duffel bag on the bed and collapsed. I had not looked under it. Why would I, who wanted to see the kind of history that collected under a bed in a place like this? But something was there. It was dark, rectangular. I slid off the mattress, my bare feet recoiling from the cold, grimy floor. I crouched, squinting into the darkness, my fingers brushed against something hard and leathery, a suitcase. It was an old-fashioned, hard-sided suitcase, the kind my grandmother used to have. It was heavy. I grabbed a fistful of the handle and pulled, the case scraping loudly against the floor. It was covered in dust, but it was not a wreck. It was actually in good condition. Dark brown with brass clasps, now tarnished green in places. Taped to the handle was a simple, white luggage tag. My breath caught in my throat. Written on the tag in neat, looping cursive was my name, Lily. Just Lily. I sat back on my heels. This was impossible. This had to be a mistake. Maybe there was another Lily staying here. But the name was on a suitcase under the bed in my room. A room I had been in for 21 days. Had it been here the whole time? My heart began to hammer against my ribs, a fast and frantic drumbeat. This felt wrong. This felt dangerous. Who leaves a suitcase for someone in a motel? But the most baffling part, the detail that made my skin crawl, was the rope. It was not locked with a key. It was tied shut, a thick, coarse piece of rope knotted intricately around the handle and latches, as if someone had wrapped a present from someone who did not have a gift bag, a present from someone who had been gone a long, long time. The thought surfaced, unbidden and cold. It looked like a final, desperate offering, a gift from the dead. I fumbled with the knot. My fingers were shaking so badly I could barely get a purchase. The rope was stiff, abrasive against my skin. I should not be doing this. I should call the front desk, but the mental image of the night manager, a man with greasy hair and a permanent scowl, made me pause. He would just take it. He would claim it was his. Finally, the knot gave way. The rope fell loose. I stared at the 2 brass latches. They clicked open easily. Loud sounds in the quiet room. I lifted the lid. My mind refused to process what I was seeing. It could not, because the suitcase was full of money. Stacks and stacks of cash, neatly bundled $100 bills. They were bound in paper bands, the kind I had only ever seen in movies. I reached out a trembling hand and touched the top stack. It was real. The paper was crisp, slightly rough. I could smell it. A faint, dry scent of ink and linen and something else. Something old. I lifted one stack. It was heavy. I counted the bands, 10, 20, 30. I did not dare count the individual bills. My gaze fell to the side of the case. Tucked into an elastic pocket was a single envelope, cream-colored, expensive paper. My name was on this too, Lily, in the same elegant cursive. I dropped the stack of money. It landed on the pile with a soft, dull thud. My hands were shaking again, but this time it was not just from fear. It was something else, a wild, electric shock. I opened the envelope. The paper was thick, and there was a faint scent of lavender, a scent I knew, a scent I had not smelled in years. The letter was short. My dearest Lily, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and you are in the trouble I always feared you would find. I am so sorry I could not be there for you, my girl. I always wanted to protect you from the world, especially from the world that I came from. Do not trust Sebastian. He's not the man you think he is. He and that girl, Amelia, they have hurt you. I knew they would. I tried to warn your mother, but she never listened. This money is for you. It is $70,000, a starting fund. It is not much, but it is what I could safely put aside. Use it to get away. Use it to build a new life, the one you deserve. Do not grieve for me, Lily. I have been gone for a long time, but I have always been watching. This money is a gift, but it is also a key. It comes from my family, the family you never knew you had. They are not good people. Lily, not in the way the world sees good, but they are loyal. And now, they are your family too. The man who delivered this will contact you. He will know you have the package. His name is Giovanni. Trust him. He was my protector, and now he will be yours. Be brave, my girl. Your life is just beginning. With all my love, Aunt Helen. I read the letter once, twice, a third time. The words blurred, the letters dancing in the dim light. Aunt Helen. My Aunt Helen, my mother's estranged sister, the black sheep, the one who had supposedly run off with a musician and died in a car crash in Arizona 10 years ago. We had buried an empty casket. My mother had wept for weeks. I had been a teenager, confused and sad, mourning the vibrant, laughing aunt who used to sneak me candy. She was not dead. Or she was... The letter said, if you are reading this, then I am gone. But she had written this. She knew. She knew about Sebastian. She knew about Amelia. She knew I was in trouble. How could she know? And the money. $70,000. She called it a starting fund. She called it not much. I looked at the pile of cash that could buy this entire motel, and a hysterical laugh bubbled in my throat. What did she mean? A gift from my family? What family? My mother was an only child, except for Helen. My father was long gone. The Mafia. The word was not in the letter, but it was there, hovering between the lines. They are not good people. My protector, Giovanni, it sounded like something straight out of one of the movies Sebastian used to love. He had always had a fascination with them, with the power, the loyalty. I used to tease him about it. Do not trust Sebastian. He's not the man you think he is. A cold dread, colder than the cheap floor, seeped into my bones. I had thought he was a successful, if slightly boring, investment banker. What was he? What was this world my aunt had been a part of? A world that left suitcases full of cash under motel beds. A gift from the Mafia. A key. I stared at the money, and then at the letter. My whole body was trembling, a violent, uncontrollable shaking. This was insane. This was a nightmare. I should take the money and run, go to the police. But what would I tell them? That my dead aunt sent me $70,000 from the mob. They would lock me up. I reread the last lines. His name is Giovanni. Trust him. He was my protector, and now he will be yours. Be brave, my girl. Your life is just beginning." My life, the one I had, the one in the beautiful New York brownstone, was over. It had been a lie, a carefully constructed illusion. Sebastian, Amelia, their betrayal was not just a simple, sordid affair. The letter implied something more. I knew they would hurt you. It was planned. I looked around the tiny, filthy room. This was my reality. A runaway wife with no money, no job, and no future. And then I looked at the suitcase. $70,000 and a letter that felt like a hand reaching out from the grave, a hand pulling me toward an abyss. Or maybe, just maybe, it was pulling me out of one. I folded the letter and put it in my pocket. I closed the lid of the suitcase. The latches clicked shut, sealing the decision. I did not know who Giovanni was. I did not know what family Aunt Helen was talking about. I had no idea what world I was about to step into. But for the first time in 3 weeks, for the first time since I saw Sebastian's face crumple, not in guilt but in annoyance at being caught, I was not just numb. I was not just sad. I was afraid, but I was also alive. I pushed the suitcase back under the bed, but I left the handle peeking out. I would not let it out of my sight. I sat on the edge of the bed, the thin mattress groaning under my weight. The man in the next room had stopped coughing. The only sound was the buzz of the flickering sign outside my window. Red, then dark, then red again. My life was just beginning. I did not know whether that was a promise or a threat. I slept with the suitcase handle looped around my wrist. It was a stupid, paranoid thing to do. The heavy, leathery strap was coarse against my skin, and every time I shifted on the lumpy mattress, the case knocked against the metal bed frame with a dull, heavy thud. It was the sound of $70,000, the sound of my dead aunt, the sound of a life I never knew existed, calling to me from the shadows. Sleep did not come easily. When it did, it was not a refuge. It was a torment, because my mind, newly armed with the horrifying knowledge from Helen's letter, insisted on replaying the past, not as a tragedy, but as a farce. It replayed our home, the 3-story brownstone in Brooklyn Heights, with the ivy climbing the front and the big, sunny kitchen I had insisted on. I remembered the smell of fresh coffee and Sebastian, standing by the French press, his back to me. He was always perfectly dressed, even before his shower, a crisp button-down shirt, dark trousers. His dark hair was always impeccably styled. He would turn, a slow smile spreading across his handsome face. "Morning, beautiful." He would murmur, his voice a low, smooth baritone. He would cross the kitchen, hand me a mug, and kiss my forehead. He was Sebastian. My Sebastian, the brilliant, slightly mysterious investment banker I had met at a dreadful corporate gala. I was 24. He was 30, and he had looked at me as if I were the only person in a room of 500. He was charming. He was attentive. He made me feel safe. Safe. The word tasted like ash in my mouth, even in the dream. In the motel room, I would jerk awake, my heart pounding, the smell of stale smoke filling my lungs. The brownstone was gone. The man who kissed my forehead was a monster. "He's not the man you think he is." Helen's words echoed in the silence. And how blind I had been. Willfully, stupidly blind. I had built a fortress of denial around his business. He was an investment banker. He said he handled difficult clients and sensitive portfolios. That was why he traveled so much, often with little notice. That was why his colleagues were hard-looking men in expensive suits who never smiled and called me Mrs. Bianchi. Bianchi, his last name, a name I had been so proud to take. Now it felt like a costume. He loved movies about the Mafia. I remembered that now. We would curl up on our plush velvet sofa, and he would watch the old classics. He would point at the screen, a strange, almost reverent light in his eyes. "See that? Lily, that's loyalty, that's family. They understand things. I had laughed. I had told him he was being dramatic. He had just smiled. That same slow, perfect smile. You have no idea. He had said, no, I truly did not. My mind, relentless, would then conjure her. Amelia, my best friend since we were interns together at the marketing firm. We had shared cheap apartments, cheaper wine, and all our deepest secrets. Or so I had thought. She was the bright, bubbly blonde to my more reserved brunette. She was the one who pushed me to talk to Sebastian at that gala. He's gorgeous. Lily, go. Live a little. She'd been my maid of honor. Her speech at our wedding had made everyone cry. She had held my hand when my mother was sick. She was a part of our lives, a constant, welcome presence. She was at our house for dinner at least 3 times a week. She and Sebastian would bicker playfully, like a brother and sister. He would tease her about her dating life, and she would roll her eyes and complain to me about him. He's so protective. Lily, you are so lucky. Lucky? The letter had not just implicated him. He and that girl, Amelia. They had planned it. It was not a lapse in judgment. It was not a moment of weakness. It was a conspiracy. My husband and my best friend. How long? How long had I been their fool? I remembered the last few months, the change. Sebastian had become distant, his phone guarded, his business trips more frequent. He would come home late, smelling of cigars and a perfume that was not mine. I had confronted him. He had laughed. He had told me I was paranoid, stressed from work. He had bought me a diamond bracelet the next day. I had felt so guilty. I had apologized. Amelia had changed, too. She stopped sharing things. Our lunches became quick, surface level. She seemed nervous, her eyes always darting around. When I confided in her about Sebastian, about my fears, she'd brush them off. You are imagining things. Lily, she had said, her voice a little too sharp. He adores you. You are just in a rut. It happens to all married couples. She told me I needed to be more exciting, to keep his interest. She was telling me this while she was sleeping with him. The betrayal was so complete, so all-encompassing. It was almost brilliant, a work of art. And then, the day it all shattered. It was a Tuesday. I remember that. A perfectly normal Tuesday in October. I had a big presentation that afternoon, the culmination of 6 months of work. At lunch, I realized I had left the key slides at home, on my personal laptop. I called Sebastian. No answer. I called Amelia, to vent my frustration. No answer. I raced home in a cab, my heels clicking in panic on the pavement. I was annoyed, flustered. I let myself into the silent house. Sebastian, I called out. No answer. I figured he was at the office. I ran upstairs to our bedroom, to the desk in the alcove where I kept my laptop. I stopped in the doorway. The sounds? I had heard them first, low, rhythmic, animalistic. I did not understand. I thought maybe a pipe had burst. Then I saw them. In our bed, the one with the pale blue sheets I loved. Amelia, her blonde hair was splayed across my pillows. Her eyes were closed, her face flushed in a way I had only ever seen after our spin classes. And Sebastian, my husband, he was... I must have made a sound, a gasp, a whimper. They froze. Amelia screamed, a thin, bird-like shriek, and she grabbed for the sheet, her face a mask of pale, theatrical terror. Sebastian did not. He turned. He looked at me, his chest bare and glistening, and he was not guilty. He was not ashamed. He was annoyed. His brows drew together in that familiar expression of impatience, the one he got when a waiter was too slow or when I interrupted his work. Lily, when he said, and his voice was flat, "You're home early." That was what broke me. Not the act itself, not the nakedness, not the betrayal, but the annoyance in his voice, as if I were the one who had made a mistake, as if I had interrupted something important. I do not remember the next hour clearly. I remember screaming. I remember throwing a lamp. I remember Amelia, wrapped in a sheet, sobbing apologies that sounded hollow and practiced. It just happened. Lily, I do not know how he said he loved me. And Sebastian, pulling on his trousers, watching her with a look of pure contempt. "Get out, Amelia," he had ordered, and she had scurried out of my room, out of my house, leaving me alone with him. He had tried to touch me. "Lily, baby, let's talk about this. You do not understand." "I understand," I had shrieked. "I understand that you are disgusting, that you are both disgusting." "You do not understand anything, he had said, his voice dropping, the charm gone, replaced by something cold and hard. "This is a complication, that is all. She means nothing. It is just sex." "Get out," I whispered. "This is my house, Lily. Get out." I had grabbed my purse. I had grabbed the duffel bag I kept packed for the gym. I had thrown in a few clothes, my toothbrush. I had walked out of my house, my life, my world, without looking back. I had tried to go to work the next day. I had sat at my desk, staring at the screen and the presentation I had missed. My boss, a kind but firm woman, had called me into her office. "Lily, is everything all right?" I had burst into tears. They gave me a week off, then 2. My clients were reassigned. My projects were given to other people. When I finally stopped crying long enough to call, they told me they were restructuring. My position had been eliminated. I knew Sebastian was on the board of one of our parent company's investors. I had thought it was a wonderful coincidence at the time. I knew now. He had made a call. He had cut me off. I stayed at a hotel in Midtown until my credit card was declined, then a cheaper one, then a weekly rate place in Queens, and finally, here, the Starlight Motel. My last stop, $2.47 in my purse. Until last night. I sat up on the bed, the flimsy blanket pooling around my waist. The gray, watery light of dawn was filtering through the gaps in the curtains. The motel room was still a dump. I was still a wreck. But something was different. I was not just the victim anymore. I was not just Lily, the crying, broken wife. I pulled the suitcase out. I opened it. The sight of the money still made my stomach clench. But it was not just fear. It was potential. Aunt Helen had known. She had known what he was. She had known what they were capable of. She had called him Sebastian, but I wondered if that was even his real name. A gift from my family. She had written, the Mafia. My husband was not an investment banker who cheated. He was a monster who conspired. He and Amelia had not just broken my heart. They had tried to destroy my life. The letter said, "They have hurt you." It felt planned, calculated. I looked at the $70,000. Aunt Helen had called it a starting fund. She had called it a key. I had been living in a beautiful, perfect, fragile bubble. Sebastian and Amelia had popped it, and I had been left with nothing. But I was wrong. I was not left with nothing. I was left with $70,000, a dead aunt who was more alive than I ever knew, and the name of a man in Chicago, Giovanni. The grief was still there, a cold, heavy stone in my stomach, but it was not the only thing. A new feeling was growing beside it, a feeling as cold and hard and real as the stacks of cash in the suitcase. Anger. I closed the suitcase. I stood up. I went into the tiny, rust-stained bathroom and turned on the shower. The water came out in a lukewarm trickle. I did not care. I was done crying. I was done being the victim. My old life was a lie. My husband was a monster, and my best friend was a traitor. My new life, whatever it was, had just begun, and it began with $70,000 and a dead woman's secret. The first thing I did when the sun came up was check under the bed. The suitcase was still there. The second thing I did was take the single envelope from my jeans pocket. I unfolded it. Aunt Helen's looping cursive was just as I remembered it. Sharp, clear, and absolutely real. The man who delivered this will contact you. He will know you have the package. His name is Giovanni. I had sat on that lumpy bed all night, the $70,000 a hard, rectangular weight beneath me, and waited. I waited for a knock. I waited for a phone call on the motel's cracked, greasy phone. I waited for a Giovanni to appear. Nothing happened. The sun was now streaming watery gray light through the window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. A new day. A day where I was a woman with a dead aunt who was not dead, a secret Mafia family, and a suitcase full of cash I had no idea how to use. The letter said to wait, but waiting felt like a trap. Waiting was what I had been doing for 3 weeks, waiting for my life to make sense again, and it had only rotted around me. I pulled the suitcase out. I opened it. The money was still there, a solid, undeniable block of temptation and terror. I ran my fingers over the paper bands. Aunt Helen had written, "It is not much." What kind of world did she live in where $70,000 was not much? I looked at the envelope again. It was tucked into an elastic pocket on the lid, just one pocket, but the suitcase was old, lined with a faded beige satin. And as I ran my hand along the inside of the lid, my fingers snagged on something, a loose thread. I pulled. The satin, brittle with age, tore with a dry, ripping sound to tag beneath it. There was not just suitcase lining. There was a thin, hard piece of board, a false bottom, or, in this case, a false top. My heart resumed its frantic hammering. I wedged my fingernails under the edge of the board. It was stuck fast. I grabbed the cheap, flimsy metal fork from the room's single-cup coffee maker and used it as a lever. The metal bent, but the board groaned and popped free. Beneath it, there was another envelope. This one was not cream. It was a stark, businesslike white, and it was thick. My name. Lily was on it, but this time, it was not in cursive. It was typed. I tore it open. My hands were shaking so badly I ripped the paper inside. It was not a letter. It was documents, a bank statement, not mine. It was a statement for an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The name on the account was Sebastian Bianchi. The balance made me stop breathing. It was over $4 million. Tucked behind the statement was a property deed, a deed for a villa in Italy, also in his name. And behind that, a single sheet of paper folded twice. This was the letter I was meant to find. Lily, if you found this, you are smarter than I thought, and you are ready. The first letter was a test. Waiting is for victims. What you see is the truth. Sebastian has been stealing from you since the day you married him, your inheritance from your father. The trust fund your mother set up, it is all gone. He did not just move it, he liquidated it. He told you those investments he was making were for your future. He was lying. They were for his. That $4 million, half of that is, or was, yours. He has been siphoning it into that account for 5 years. He and Amelia, they were not just having an affair, they were partners. She helped him. She used your friendship to get your passwords, to learn your mother's maiden name, to sign papers you thought were for taxes. They were liquidating your assets. The plan was simple. Once you were bled dry, he would leave you, divorce you. He would be the rich, successful man, and you would be the unstable wife with nothing. Your discovery of them in bed did not ruin their plan. It only accelerated it. This is the world he belongs to. Lily. My world. But he is a parasite, a rat feeding on the edges of an empire. He's not a made man. He's just a thief who got greedy. The $70,000 is seed money. It is untraceable. Use it. Do not wait for Giovanni to find you. You must find him. He will not respect a woman who waits to be rescued. He respects action. The address is on this paper. It is in Chicago. It is a restaurant, Go to the bar, order a Helen special, and give the bartender this. Taped to the bottom of the letter was a single, heavy, gold coin. It was old, stamped with a crest I did not recognize. Get out of New York. Do not use your credit cards. Do not use your phone. Take the bus. Disappear. When you see Giovanni, you tell him Helen sent you to collect on her policy. He will understand. Do not be the woman you were. Lily, that woman is dead. They killed her. It is time to become the woman I always knew you were. Your fight is just beginning. Helen, I read it 3 times. The words were like slaps in the face. Stolen. He had stolen from me. My inheritance, my everything. It was not just betrayal. It was a financial execution. Amelia, what is your mother's maiden name? I am trying to guess your security question. She had laughed over brunch one day. I had told her. I was not just a fool. I had been an accomplice to my own destruction. The anger came, cold and pure. It was a new, clean feeling. It burned away the fog of grief. I looked at the bank statement, at the $4 million. Half, $2 million. He'd stolen $2 million from me. While I was picking out paint colors for the nursery we were trying to start, I stood up. I showered in the cold, dribbling water. I got dressed in the cleanest dirty clothes I had. I packed my duffel bag. I put the thick white envelope and the gold coin in my pocket. I put the $70,000 into the suitcase. But I took one stack of hundreds. I put $5,000 in my duffel bag and $5,000 in my jeans pockets, distributing it so it was not a single, suspicious bulge. I left the suitcase under the bed. Let the motel manager have it. Let him think he hit the jackpot. He would open it, find $60,000, and his life would change. He would be too busy counting it to remember my face. It was a risk. But walking through a bus station with a suitcase that screamed old money was a bigger one. A duffel bag and a desperate face, I was invisible. I walked out of room 26. I did not check out. I walked 3 blocks to a convenience store and bought a prepaid burner phone. I walked 10 blocks to a different convenience store and bought a bottle of water and a bus map. I walked 20 blocks, a different direction entirely, to the Port Authority bus terminal. I paid cash for a one-way ticket to Chicago. The bus left in 45 minutes. I sat in the waiting area, my duffel bag at my feet, my hand in my pocket, clutching the gold coin. It was heavy. It felt like an anchor. I was not Lily Bianchi, the grieving wife. I was not Lily, the marketing executive. I did not know who I was. I was a woman on a bus, with $10,000 in her clothes and a dead aunt's Mafia connections in her pocket. The bus ride was 30 hours of hell. Every time we stopped, at a rest stop in Pennsylvania or a station in Ohio, I thought I saw him. I saw Sebastian's tailored overcoat in the crowd. I saw Amelia's bright blonde hair in the reflection of a window. I did not sleep. I watched the blurred, green-gray landscape of America pass by. I was running away from my life. I was running towards something I could not even imagine. Chicago was loud and cold. The wind off the lake felt like it had teeth. It had been 2 days since I left the motel. I was exhausted, filthy, and my entire body ached. I found a cheap hotel, a step up from the Starlight, but not by much. I paid cash for 2 nights. I slept for 12 hours. When I woke up, the anger was still there, a hot coal in my stomach. I looked at the address on Helen's letter. It was a restaurant in Little Italy, Giovanni's. Of course it was. I waited until dark. I spent $10 on a black dress from a thrift store. I spent $20 on a decent meal at a diner. I could not show up looking like a refugee. The restaurant was old school, dark wood, red velvet booths, white tablecloths. A heavy-set man in a tuxedo who looked like he could break someone in half stood at the door. He looked me up and down. My $10 dress was not fooling him. "Can I help you?" he asked. His voice was a gravel road. "I am here to see Giovanni." I said. My voice almost squeaked. He looked bored. "Mister, Rossi is not seeing anyone." "Giovanni Rossi?" "I'm not here to see Mr. Rossi," I said, my voice firmer. I was channeling Helen. "I am here to see Giovanni." I went to the bar. It was long, dark mahogany. A man was polishing glasses. He was tall, younger than the man at the door, but he had the same stillness. He was lean, with dark hair cut short, and eyes so dark they looked black. He wore a crisp white shirt and a black vest. He did not look like a bartender. He looked like a panther. He did not look at me. He just kept polishing. "Can I help you?" he asked. His voice was low, smooth, and had an accent I could not place. This was him. I knew it. This had to be the man who was not a bartender. "I would like a Helen special," I said. He stopped polishing. He set the glass down. He turned his head very slowly and looked at me for the first time. His eyes were not black. They were a very, very dark blue, and they were cold. He studied my face, my cheap dress, my nervous hands. "We do not have a drink by that name," he said. "I was told you would," I said. My hand went to my pocket. I pulled out the gold coin. I slid it across the polished wood. His eyes flickered down to the coin. He did not touch it. His gaze snapped back to my face. The coldness was still there, but now there was something else. A flicker of something. Interest. He picked up the coin. He examined the crest. "Who gave you this?" "My Aunt Helen." He stared at me, his face unreadable. "Helen is dead." "She was," I said. "Now she is." A shadow of a smile touched his lips, but it was not a kind smile. "She always did like to be difficult. Wait here." He disappeared through a door behind the bar. I waited. I waited for 10 minutes. My heart was going to beat its way out of my chest. He returned. "He will see you." Not I. So this was not Giovanni. This was a lieutenant. The man from the door, the mountain in the tuxedo, appeared at my elbow. "This way, miss." He led me away from the bright restaurant, through a hall, and to a single, heavy wooden door. He knocked once. A voice from inside, a deep, powerful voice, said, "Avanti!" The door opened. The office was huge, lined with books. A fire roared in a massive fireplace, and sitting behind a desk so large it looked like it could anchor a ship was a man. He was older, in his 60s, with a mane of silver hair and a face that looked like it was carved from granite. He was wearing an impeccably tailored 3-piece suit. He was smoking a cigar. This was Giovanni Rossi. This was the Mafia boss. He looked at me. His eyes were a startlingly light, clear blue. He did not smile. "Helen's girl," he said. It was not a question. "I am Lily. I know who you are," he said. He gestured to the chair in front of his desk. "Sit." I sat. He took a long pull from his cigar. Helen and I were very old friends. She was a remarkable woman, a pain in my ass, but remarkable. He looked at the gold coin, which was now sitting on his desk. "She told me to tell you. She sent me to collect on her policy." Giovanni Rossi threw back his magnificent silver head and laughed. It was a sound like rocks rolling downhill. "That she did," he said, the laugh vanishing as quickly as it came. He leaned forward, his light blue eyes pinning me to the chair. "Your aunt, Lily, was not just a friend. She was family. She was one of the most brilliant financial minds I have ever known. She ran all of my European accounts for 20 years. She made us all very, very rich." My mouth was dry. Aunt Helen, the black sheep. "She set up a policy," he continued, his voice dropping. "A dead man's switch. You might call it. She knew the world she was in. She knew the world she had left. She told me, if anything ever happens to me, Giovanni and my niece, Lily comes to you with this coin. It means one thing. It means the jackals have come for her, and you will do for her what you would have done for me." He paused, letting the words hang in the smoke-filled air. "She knew about Sebastian," I whispered. "She knew of him," Giovanni corrected. "A low-level earner, a man with champagne tastes and a sewer rat's morals. We tolerated him, but we never trusted him. When he married Helen's niece, she became concerned. She started watching, and she started planning." He opened a drawer in his massive desk. He pulled out a file. It was thick. "Helen was meticulous," he said, tapping the file. "She built a new life for you, Lily, a life she always wanted for herself, one with money, real money and power." He looked at me, his gaze softening for just a fraction of a second. "Your aunt loved you very much, but the world she has left for you, it is not an easy one. She left you a fortune, but it is not a gift. It is a set of keys. And every door you open with them, there will be a monster waiting behind it." He slid the file across the desk. "The first monster," he said, "is your husband." I did not go back to the hotel. I did not even step back out into the restaurant. When Giovanni Rossi finished speaking, when he slid that thick, heavy file across the expanse of his mahogany desk, he had simply pressed a button on an intercom. "Dante," he had said, "she is with me now. Take her to the apartment." The silent, panther-like man who was not a bartender appeared at the door. He had nodded once. He had not offered to carry my duffel bag. He had simply led me out of a side door into a black, gleaming sedan and driven me through the Chicago night to a high-rise building on the lake. He had taken me up to the 30th floor, used a key on a door with a high-tech lock, and stood aside. "You are safe here," he had said, his voice flat. "Everything you need is inside. Someone will be in touch tomorrow." He had handed me the key. Then he was gone. The apartment was sterile, beautiful but sterile, all white and chrome and black leather, with a wall of glass that looked out over the dark, churning water of Lake Michigan. It was the kind of place Sebastian would have loved. The thought made my stomach clench. I slept for 4 hours on a sofa that cost more than my first car. I did not dream. When I woke, the sun was rising, painting the sky in shades of gray and faint, watery pink. I found a high-end coffee machine I barely knew how to work, and then I sat on the floor, my back against the cold glass, and I opened the file. Giovanni was wrong. The first monster was not my husband. The first monster was this file. It was not just the bank statements I had found in the suitcase. It was everything. Helen, my meticulous, brilliant Aunt Helen, had been building a case against Sebastian for years. She had records of his wire transfers, transcripts of phone calls, photos of him meeting with men I did not recognize, photos of him meeting with Amelia, not in a hotel, but in a quiet, sunlit cafe, looking for all the world like a normal couple. They were dated 2 years ago. 2 years. But the file was more than just an indictment of Sebastian. It was an education. Helen had not just been an accountant, Nazadim for Giovanni. She'd been his partner. The file contained ledgers, spreadsheets, and diagrams of corporate structures that made my marketing head spin. Shell corporations in Delaware, holding companies in Panama, art galleries in Switzerland, all clean, all legal, all meticulously documented, and all tied through a complex, invisible web to Giovanni Rossi. And to her, in the back of the file, there was a single thin folder. My name was on it, Lily. Inside was a single key, a key to a safe deposit box, and a single piece of paper with a series of numbers and letters, an access code. Below it, a note in Helen's hand. "This is yours, Lily, not the 2 million he stole. That is just an insult. This is the real inheritance. This is the power he stole from you. Now, you will take from him. You will take everything. But you must be smart. You cannot be the woman who cries. You must be me." I stared at the note until the words blurred. This was not a gift. It was a damnation. It was a call to arms. I was not just a grieving wife. I was the heir to a financial shadow empire. I spent 3 days in that apartment. A woman named Sophia, old and dressed in black, would appear each morning with groceries and then vanish. Dante, the silent panther, would call the apartment's intercom once a day. "Are you well, Miss Lily?" "I am fine." "Good." The line would click dead. On the 4th day, Giovanni summoned me. Dante picked me up. We drove in silence back to the restaurant, back to the massive office. Giovanni was not smoking this time. He was standing by the window, looking out. "You have read the file," he said. "I have read it. And I understand that my aunt was the most terrifying woman I have never known." He turned, and this time he smiled. It was a real smile, and it lit up his face, making him look 10 years younger. At that, she saw you. Lily, she saw the steel in you that you never knew you had. "I do not feel like I have steel," I whispered. "I feel hollow." "Good," he said, moving to his desk. "Hollow can be filled. Full is a problem. Full means you are not listening." And so my new education began. I did not go back to the lakefront apartment. I was moved to a small, elegant townhouse in a quiet, gated neighborhood. Giovanni owned the whole street. I met with him every other day, and he was not a tutor, and he was a strategist. He would give me scenarios. A man owes you $50,000, and he would say, sipping an espresso. He has a wife, 2 children. He pleads poverty, but you know he just bought a new car. What do you do? I would take the car, I said, my old marketing brain kicking in. Seize the asset. No, he said, his eyes cold. You do not. You take his car. You have a car. You have to sell it. You get maybe $40,000. You have made an enemy. His wife hates you. His children hate you. It is messy. He leaned forward. You go to his house. You bring a gift for his wife, a small, expensive one. You admire his new car. You tell him you know times are a bit tough, so you will extend him a favor. You will only require him to pay you $2,000 a month for the next 36 months. My eyes widened. That is $72,000. Yes, Giovanni said, sitting back. And you have not made an enemy. You have made a partner. He's grateful for your kindness. He will never miss a payment because he knows you know about the car. He knows you could have taken it. He respects your mercy, but he fears your knowledge that, Lily, is power, not revenge. Power. I was in his world, a world of shadows and leverage, where kindness was a weapon and loyalty was a currency. And I found, to my horror, that I was a good student. And I began to feel the pull, the attraction. It was not love. It was not desire. It was gravity. Giovanni was the sun in this dark universe. He was powerful. He was intelligent, and he was, in his own terrifying way, honest. He never lied to me. He told me the brutal truth, and he expected me to handle it after years of Sebastian's charming, suffocating lies. Giovanni's brand of truth was as bracing as the Chicago wind. It was addictive. But the past was not done with me. One night, the burner phone I had bought in New York, the one I had stupidly kept in the bottom of my duffel bag, rang. I had not turned it on. I had not charged it. It was off, but it was ringing. I stared at it, the shrill, cheap sound echoing in the silent townhouse. Dante, who was in the kitchen talking quietly to Sophia, appeared in the doorway. His hand was inside his jacket. "Do not answer it, he said, his voice low. "How is it ringing?" I whispered. "He's telling you he can still find you," Dante said. "He's telling you that you are not as safe as you think." Sebastian. I let it ring until it stopped. Dante looked at me. "He's trying to scare you." "He has," I said. The next day, it rang again, and again I ignored it. On the third day, a text message came through. "Lily, baby, where are you? I'm going out of my mind. I am so sorry. I love you. Please, just let me know you are safe. I can fix this. I will give up everything for you." I read the words, and a cold sickness filled me. This was the man I had married. This was the man who had kissed my forehead, the man who had promised to love me. The words were a perfect echo of the man I had loved. I showed the text to Giovanni. He read it, his face unreadable. He handed the phone back to me. "What do you believe, Lily?" This was the test. Helen had said I could not be the woman who cries. Giovanni was asking me if I was still the woman who believed the lie. I looked at the phone. I thought of the $4 million. I thought of the photos of him and Amelia, laughing, 2 years ago. "I believe," I said, my voice shaking, but my hands steady, "that he is a very well-practiced liar." Giovanni watched me for a long moment. "Good," he said. "Now, delete the message, but save the number. We will use it." I thought that was the end of it. I thought they would stay ghosts on a phone. I was wrong. A week later, I was in a small coffee shop in a different neighborhood. Dante had suggested it. "It is good to move. Miss Lily, be seen, but be seen by us." I was sitting by the window. reading a book on international finance that Giovanni had given me. The bell on the door tinkled. I did not look up until a shadow fell across my page. "Lily? Oh my God, Lily, it is you." I froze. That voice, that bright, bubbly, treacherous voice. I looked up. Amelia stood there, her blonde hair perfect, her eyes wide with a practiced look of shocked disbelief. She was wearing a beige trench coat that I had helped her pick out. "Amelia," I said. My voice was flat, cold. Tears, instant and enormous, welled in her eyes. "Lily, I have been looking for you everywhere. I have been so worried. I went to the police, but they said you were not missing. You just, left." She dropped into the chair opposite me, her hands shaking. She dropped her purse, and then, to my utter horror, she half fell, half knelt on the floor beside my table, grabbing my hand. "Lily, you have to forgive me," she sobbed, and people were turning to look. "He made me do it. He is a monster." This was her script, the one she had practiced. "He told me he would hurt me," she whispered, her voice frantic. He said he would hurt you if I did not help him. He told me he loved me, and I was so stupid. I believed him, but it was all about the money. Lily, your money. He twisted everything. I never wanted to hurt you. You are my best friend. You are my sister." I looked down at her beautiful, tear-streaked face, at her hands, clutching mine, the hands that had helped my husband steal my life. I remembered Helen's note. They were partners. I felt nothing. The grief was gone. The shock was gone. There was just the cold, clear precision of Giovanni's lessons. I pulled my hand free. "Get up, Amelia," I said. She sniffled, looking up at me, her blue eyes wide. "Lily." Get up," I said. My voice was not my own. It was low, and it did not shake. "You are making a scene." She stood up, her face confused. I want to help. I can help you. Lily, he is dangerous. Let me help you get your money back. We can go to the police together." "Get away from me, Amelia," I said. I stood up, gathering my book. "What, Lily? No, please." I leaned in, so close I could smell her expensive perfume, the same one Sebastian had smelled of. I said, "Get away from me," I whispered. "I know what you did. I know what he did. And the next time I see you, I will not be this polite." The color drained from her face. The tears stopped. The mask of the victim fell. And just for a second, I saw her, the cold, calculating woman from Helen's photographs. She recoiled, her mouth opening and closing. I turned and walked out of the coffee shop, leaving her standing there. Dante's black sedan was parked across the street. I got in. I did not look back. I told Giovanni what happened. He nodded, a single, sharp gesture of approval. "Good, the rat has shown her face. Now we know they are working together, and they are getting desperate." He looked at me, his light blue eyes assessing. "They know you are gone. They know you have changed. But they do not know you are with me." He was right. The encounters with my past, with the ghosts of the man I loved and the woman I called sister, had not broken me. They had solidified me. The internal conflict, the war between the crying wife and the angry victim was over. Both of them were dead. I was someone else now. I was Helen's heir. I was Giovanni's protege. And I was no longer a player. I was a weapon. And I was finally ready to be aimed. The time had come. "Lily," Giovanni said. He was not looking at the financial reports I'd been studying. He was looking at the invitation list for his annual charity gala. I knew this was no ordinary party. This was the one night a year when Giovanni Rossi's entire organization, his capos, his associates, the heads of the other families, all met under one roof. "He is desperate," Giovanni continued. "Amelia's failure to retrieve you has made him careless. He's been trying to move the money. Helen's accounts, they are locking him out. He is trapped." "He will be there," I asked. My voice was steady. "He will be there," Giovanni confirmed. "He and the girl, they have been summoned. They believe they are coming to negotiate a truce. They believe they are going to plead their case against a hysterical, runaway wife." He looked up at me, his light blue eyes sharp enough to cut glass. "They are not going to find her. They are going to find you." The night of the gala, the townhouse was a flurry of activity. Sophia, the quiet housekeeper, was no longer just a housekeeper. She was a dresser, a woman of severe, impeccable taste. She presented me with a dress. It was not black. It was a deep blood red, silk. It was cut low, clinging to my body in a way that was not suggestive, but authoritative. "Mr. Rossi's choice," she had said. There were diamonds, a necklace and earrings. They were cold against my skin. When I looked in the mirror, I did not see Lily, the broken wife. I did not even see Helen's protégé. I saw a stranger, a woman carved from ice and anger. Dante drove me. He, too, was transformed. He was in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, and the stillness I had mistaken for a bartender's patience was now clearly the coiled energy of a predator. He was my shadow. The gala was at Giovanni's mansion, a sprawling estate north of the city that I had never seen. The ballroom was vast, a sea of black tuxedos and designer gowns. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto 1,000 people. The air hummed with power. Giovanni was waiting at the foot of the grand staircase. He was magnificent in a custom tuxedo. He looked like a king. He did not smile. He simply held out his arm. I took it. When we walked into that ballroom, the hum of conversation did not stop, but it changed. It faltered. Every eye turned to us, to Giovanni Rossi, the boss, and the unknown woman in red on his arm. I was his declaration. He led me through the crowd, introducing me. "This is Lily," he would say. Just Lily. And the men, hard-eyed men with names I only knew from Helen's files, would bow their heads. The women draped in jewels would watch me with sharp, assessing looks. I was being weighed. I was being measured. I felt Giovanni's hand on the small of my back, a solid, warm pressure. It was not a lover's touch. It was an anchor. "I am here." We stood on a small, raised dais overlooking the room, and I waited. At precisely 10 o'clock, they arrived. I saw them before they saw me. They were not brought in through the main doors. They were escorted through a side entrance by 2 of Giovanni's men. Sebastian looked smaller. The perfect tailored suit was still there, but it looked rumpled. His handsome face was pale, tight with anxiety. He was scanning the room, not like a guest, but like an animal sniffing for a trap. And Amelia? She was clinging to his arm. Her bright, bubbly energy was gone. She was wearing a pale blue dress, trying to look innocent, but she just looked washed out. She was terrified. They saw Giovanni, and they started walking toward the dais. They were pushing through the crowd, desperation making them rude. Sebastian had his charming smile fixed on his face, the one he used to win clients. "Giovanni," he started, "Mr. Rossi, thank you so much for seeing us. There has been a terrible misunderstanding." He reached the steps of the dais. He looked up, and he saw me. His face, the face I had loved for 7 years, crumpled. It was not guilt. It was not shock. It was the face of a man who had just seen his entire world vaporize. The blood drained from his face. "Lily," he whispered. He stared at the red dress, the diamonds, the hand of Giovanni Rossi resting lightly on my arm. What is this? What have you done?" Amelia saw me, and she made a small, strangled sound. "Hello? Sebastian?" I said. My voice was amplified by a microphone I had not even realized was on the lectern nearby. The room went silent. 1,000 pairs of eyes were on us. This was not a domestic dispute. This was theater. "Lily, baby," he tried, his voice shaking. He was trying to regain control. "What have you told them? You are confused. You are not well. We have been so worried." "She's not confused. Mr. Bianchi," Giovanni's voice boomed. silencing the room completely. She is enlightened, and she has a presentation. This was it. This was my moment. I stepped forward. I did not look at him. I looked at the crowd, at the men who mattered. "My name is Lily," I said, my voice clear and cold. "Some of you knew my aunt, Helen, for 20 years. She managed your most sensitive accounts. She was loyal, she was family." I heard mutters. They had known her. "And this man," I said, finally pointing at Sebastian, "was my husband. He is a thief. He is a rat." Sebastian lunged. "You liar, she is hysterical, she—" Dante moved. He did not touch Sebastian. He simply appeared at the foot of the stairs, and Sebastian froze. "He did not just betray me," I continued. "He did not just betray his wedding vows. He betrayed this family." I pulled the papers from a slim portfolio on the lectern, the papers Helen had left me, the papers Giovanni and I had spent weeks verifying. This man, Sebastian Bianchi, used his marriage to me to gain access to my inheritance, but he did not stop there. He used his access to me to gain access to Helen. I held up the first document. This is a wire transfer from an account Helen managed for Mr. Capelli. I nodded to a hard-eyed man in the front row. $100,000, moved to a shell corporation under Sebastian's control. He used Helen's digital signature. He forged it. Capelli's eyes narrowed. "And this," I held up another, "is a deed for a property in Sicily, bought with funds from Mr. Toretto's offshore account." I nodded to another man. Again. "Forged. He was stealing from you." I looked at Sebastian. It was not just my husband. He was a parasite feeding on all of you, using my name and my aunt's reputation as his cover. He stole $2 million from me, but he stole over $4 million from you. The room was a tomb. The air was electric. "And she," I said, turning my gaze to Amelia, who was now weeping silently, "was his partner. She was not a lovesick fool. She was his accomplice. She is the one who secured the passwords. She is the one who co-signed the documents, pretending to be me." I threw the file on the floor at Sebastian's feet. The evidence scattered. "He is a thief," I said again, my voice ringing with absolute finality. "And he used my aunt's good name to do it. He has brought shame on this family. He has insulted all of you. And he has insulted me." Sebastian was not looking at me, and he was looking at Capelli, and he was looking at Toretto. He was looking at the dozen other men whose names were on those papers. Their faces were stone, and he was a dead man. Oh, he knew it. His charming mask melted. The annoyed look I had seen in my bedroom returned. But it was not annoyance. It was pure, feral rage. He was a rat in a trap, and a rat in a trap will always bite. He screamed at me. "You did this. You ruined me." He moved. He was fast. He was not lunging for me. He was lunging for Amelia. He grabbed her, pulling her in front of him like a shield, and in his hand, appearing from nowhere, was a small, silver pistol. He pressed it to her temple. Amelia screamed, a high, piercing sound of pure terror. The room erupted. People shouted. Sebastian was backing away, dragging Amelia with him. "Nobody moves! Nobody moves! Or I will kill her, I swear to God." My heart stopped. I was frozen. This was not the plan. But Giovanni was calm. He had not moved. He simply watched Sebastian, his face a mask of disappointment. "Sebastian, Sebastian," he said, his voice quiet but carrying, so clumsy, so distasteful. "Shut up," Sebastian screamed, his eyes wild. "You are going to let me walk out of here. You are going to give me a car. Or she dies. I do not care. She means nothing to me." Amelia sobbed. "Sebastian, no, please." "Shut up," he roared, pressing the gun harder. I looked at Giovanni. My mind was screaming, "Do something." Giovanni looked at me. His light blue eyes met mine. And in that second, I did not feel fear. I did not feel anger. I felt an absolute terrifying calm. He was in control. He had stepped slightly in front of me. his body shielding mine from Sebastian's line of sight. He gave me the smallest, almost imperceptible shake of his head. "Do not move." And in that moment, me seeing his strength, his absolute command of this chaos, seeing him shield me, I knew. It was not the soft, comfortable love I thought I had with Sebastian. This was something else. This was something forged in fire. This was trust. This was alignment. This was knowing that this man, this mafia boss, this monster, would let the world burn before he let anyone hurt me. And I would do the same for him. It was love. "You are right, Sebastian," Giovanni said, and taking one slow step forward. "She means nothing, not to you, not to me, not to anyone." Amelia's sob hitched. Sebastian faltered, confused by this. "But you," Giovanni continued, "you have been a very large inconvenience. And he sighed, "am very tired of being inconvenienced." There was a sound, a soft thwip, almost polite. It was not loud, like a gunshot in a movie. It was quiet, concise. Sebastian's eyes went wide. He looked down. A small, dark red circle was blossoming on the white front of his tuxedo shirt. He looked up, his expression one of pure, stunned confusion. He let go of Amelia. She collapsed to the floor in a heap. Sebastian took one, 2 steps forward, his hand reaching out, not for me, but for Giovanni. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. He fell. He hit the marble floor with a heavy, final thud. The room was silent. I stared at his body, the body of the man I had loved, the monster who had destroyed me. I looked across the room. Dante was standing by a pillar, 20 feet away. His hand was inside his jacket. He had not moved from his spot. I looked back at Giovanni. He was watching me, his face unreadable. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not faint. What I felt was relief. I took a single deep breath, the first truly deep breath I had taken in months. Amelia was still on the floor, gasping and sobbing, a pathetic puddle of blue silk. Giovanni walked past me. He walked down the steps, past Sebastian's body. He walked to Amelia. He looked down at her. "Get her out of my sight," he said to 2 of his men. He turned. He walked back to me. He held out his arm. "The party," he said, his voice a calm murmur, "is over." I took his arm. I did not look back. I let him lead me out of the ballroom, away from the body of my husband, and into the rest of my new life. Dante did not turn on the radio. The silence in the back of the sedan was a thick, heavy blanket. It was not an awkward silence. It was a final one. The silence of an ended chapter. I sat on the plush leather, my blood-red dress feeling like an armor I was suddenly too weak to hold up. I stared at my hands in my lap. The diamonds on my fingers caught the passing streetlights, scattering cold, sharp slivers of light. I had just watched my husband die. I had watched him fall to the marble floor in a heap of broken lies and a tailored tuxedo, and I had felt nothing. No, that was not true. It was worse than nothing. I had felt relief. A profound, soul-shattering, clean wave of relief. Giovanni sat beside me. He was not touching me. He was a solid, immovable presence, separated by a foot of expensive leather. But I felt his warmth. He was staring straight ahead, his carved granite profile unreadable. He had shielded me. He had put his body between me and Sebastian's rage. It was an act of possession. It was an act of protection. It was the darkest, most honest declaration of love I had ever known. "Are you all right, Lily?" he asked. His voice was low, a quiet rumble in the silent car. I turned my head. I looked at him. His clear blue eyes were not cold. Not now. They were watching me, assessing me, with a deep, quiet concern. "I am a widow?" I said. The word tasted strange, like a foreign language. "Yes." I watched him die. "Yes." I took a breath. I had to say it. I had to know if I was a monster. "I am relieved," I whispered. "Is that wrong?" He turned his body, just slightly, toward me. The car was dark, but I could see the intensity in his gaze. "No, Lily," he said, his voice softer than I had ever heard it. "It is not wrong. It is the correct feeling. You are not grieving a man. You are grieving an illusion. And that illusion tried to kill you. Tonight, you are free." Free. He said it, the word I had been too afraid to even think. Dante pulled the car into the secure garage beneath the townhouse. He got out and opened the door for Giovanni. Giovanni got out, then turned and offered me his hand. I placed my trembling fingers in his. His grip was warm, strong, and steady. He did not pull me out. He simply waited, offering his strength, until I found my own. I stood up, my legs shaky in my heels. We rode the private elevator up to the townhouse. Sophia was not there. The house was silent. Giovanni did not turn on all the lights. He went to the bar, a beautiful setup of dark wood and crystal I had never really looked at, and poured 2 glasses of brandy. He handed one to me. My fingers brushed his, an electric spark. He raised his glass. "To Helen," he said. "She would have been immensely proud." I raised mine, to Helen. The brandy burned, a hot and clean fire all the way down to my stomach. It was a good burn. It was the burn of the living. We stood there, in the quiet, dim living room. I finally had to ask, "Amelia," I said, what happens to her?" Giovanni took a sip of his brandy. He looked at the dark, swirling liquid. "She is being sent away," he said, his voice flat. "A long way away, to a place where her particular set of skills will be unhelpful. She will not trouble you or anyone ever again." He did not say killed. He did not say imprisoned. He said sent away. It was the same vague, final language he used in his business. And I understood. Amelia was gone, a loose end tied up and disposed of. And I felt nothing for her, the woman who had been my sister. I had no more grief left to give. I had used it all up. I sat down on the sofa, the silk of my dress hissing against the leather. Giovanni sat in the armchair opposite me. He did not crowd me. He gave me space. "You have a choice, Lily," he said, setting his glass down. "A choice. Yes, the business with Sebastian is concluded. Your inheritance. The one he stole has been reclaimed, the $4 million. Helen's more substantial. Gifts are waiting. You are a very wealthy woman. You could leave. Tonight. I would have Dante drive you to the airport. You could go to Paris, to London, to anywhere. You could be the woman in the pretty dresses. On a beach. You could forget this ever happened." I looked at him, at this powerful, dangerous, and brutally honest man. He was offering me an escape. The escape I thought I wanted 3 weeks ago. "Go to a beach," I said, "and be the woman who runs the woman who watched her husband get shot and then went shopping." "Some women would," he said, his face unreadable. I am not that woman anymore," I said, the words coming slowly, but with certainty. "I do not think I can ever be her again. That Lily, the one in the brownstone, the one who picked out paint colors. She died. She died in that motel room. Or maybe she died in my bedroom when I saw his face." "And the woman who is here now," he asked, "in the red dress, the one who faced down a room full of killers, who is she?" I looked at my hands, the diamonds. I took off the necklace. It was heavy. "I do not know," I whispered, "but she is not a victim and she is not running." I looked up at him. "I do not want to go to Paris. I want Helen's seat." A long, slow smile spread across Giovanni's face. It was the smile I had seen once before, the one that lit up his face, the one that was filled with genuine warmth. "I was hoping you would say that," he said. The next few weeks were a blur of transformation. I was no longer a protege. I was an apprentice. I was moved out of the townhouse. which had been a safe house, and into Giovanni's home, the mansion, not as a guest, not as a lover, but as a partner. I had my own wing, but I spent most of my time in his office, the one where I had first met him. He was true to his word. He gave me Helen's seat. It was a large, comfortable leather chair to the left of his desk, and he gave me her work. I was not just learning, I was working. I was managing the clean side of his empire, the art galleries, the shell corporations, the international investments, my marketing background, my understanding of perception and strategy was, as Giovanni put it, a natural fit. I was good at it. I was ruthless at it. I was making the money. And the men, Capelli, Toretto, the others, they watched me. At first, I was Mr. Rossi's new woman, a curiosity, a pretty face in a red dress. But then, at a meeting, when Capelli was complaining about a problem with a shipping port, I had interrupted. "You are looking at it the wrong way." I said. Every man in the room froze. You did not interrupt Capelli. He turned his hard eyes on me. "Excuse me, signorina." "You are trying to force them," I said, my voice steady. "You are trying to intimidate. It is clumsy, like Sebastian." The name hung in the air. "You do not need to force them," I continued, standing up, walking to the whiteboard. "You need to make them need you. You are complaining about their new regulations. Good, use them. Buy the customs brokerage firm that enforces those regulations, and then you extend them a favor. You offer to expedite their other problematic shipments for a fee. You do not make an enemy. You make a partner." I finished. The room was silent. I looked at Giovanni. His face was blank. Then Capelli, he laughed, a deep, barking laugh. He looked at Giovanni. "Holy hell, boss," he said. "She is Helen's girl." That was the day I stopped being Lily the widow. I became Lily. The transformation was profound. I cut my hair. I wore suits, not drab business suits, but sharp, impeccably tailored suits in dark, rich colors. Sophia, who was now my personal dresser and quiet confidant, approved. But the ghost of the past was not so easily exorcised. I had to kill Lily Bianchi for good. One night, I sat alone in my new office, a beautiful room overlooking the estate's gardens, and I made the final arrangements. I used a complex, anonymous trust funded by the $2 million I had reclaimed from Sebastian to pay for my mother's care, an endless, bottomless well of money that would ensure she had the best of everything, forever. It was the last act of the old Lily. I took the burner phone, the one Sebastian had used to text me, and I walked to the edge of the lake on Giovanni's property. I looked at the dark, still water. I thought about the woman in room 26. I thought about the girl who believed in love and white picket fences. She was not a fool. She was just innocent, and innocence, in this world, was a liability. I threw the phone. It made a small plip as it hit the water, and it was gone. I turned, and Giovanni was standing there, on the grass, watching me. Then he was not in a suit. He was in a dark sweater and trousers. He looked casual, almost normal. He did not ask what I had done. He knew. "It is done now, Yuman," I said. "Yes," he said. He walked toward me. He stopped just a foot away. The moon was bright, and I could see the lines around his eyes. "I have a hole," I said, my voice quiet, "inside, where the person I was used to be. It is not sad. It is just empty, cold." He looked at me for a long time. Then he did something he had never done before. He reached out and touched my face. His fingers were warm, his thumb brushing lightly against my cheek. It was not a passionate touch. It was a touch of understanding, of recognition. "It is not a hole, Lily," he said, his voice a low murmur. "It is a space. You do not fill it. You build on it. You build something new, something stronger. His hand moved from my cheek to the back of my neck, his fingers tangling in my shorter hair. He did not pull me. He just held me. "You are not alone in this, Lily," he said. "I know," I whispered. And in that moment, standing by the dark water, with the ghost of my past at the bottom of the lake, I was not afraid. I was not a victim. I was not a widow. I was healed. I was whole. And I was home. The 6 months that followed were not a whirlwind. They were a restructuring. The world I had entered, the one that had seemed so chaotic and terrifying, was in fact a world of intricate, unbending rules, and I, Lily, had become one of its chief architects. My office, next to Giovanni's, was no longer just an office, it was a command center. The name Lily was no longer whispered with curiosity, it was spoken with respect. I had proven myself, not just as Helen's heir, but as myself, the clean side of the empire. The corporations and art galleries had seen a profit increase of 30%. I had not just managed Helen's legacy, I had grown it. Giovanni and I, we were not a traditional couple. We did not have date nights. We had strategy sessions over dinners that lasted for 3 hours. We did not murmur sweet nothings. We had quiet, intense debates about leveraged buyouts and political favors. Our nights were spent in his vast, quiet bedroom. He would read his ancient Greek philosophy, and I would read my modern-day financial reports. But there was a bond, a deep, unbreakable bond forged in that ballroom. In that moment, he had shielded me. One night, I was sitting on the chaise lounge, tracing the lines of a new corporate structure. He was at the window, a dark silhouette against the moonlit skyline of his estate. "You have done well, Lily," he said, his voice a quiet rumble, better than Helen could have hoped. "Helen hoped I would survive," I said, not looking up. "I'm doing more than that." "Yes, you are," he turned, "which is why I believe you are ready for this." He walked to his desk and retrieved something. It was not a file. It was the key I had found in Helen's file, the key to the safe deposit box. "I thought we had emptied that," I said. "That was where we found the seed money for the new art fund." "That was one box," he said, "the one Helen wanted you to find. But the key, it is not a normal key. It opens more than one. There is a second box, a final one. Helen's personal box. I did not have access. Only you can." My heart, which I thought had become a steady, cold machine, gave a small, traitorous leap. "Why now?" "Because you no longer need her guidance," he said. "You are her equal. It is time you collected your final inheritance, her thoughts." The bank was in Zurich. We flew on a private jet. It was the first time I had left the country since before. The vault was deep underground, cold and silent. I used the key. I entered the access codes I had long since memorized. A bank manager, his face a mask of polite neutrality, unlocked the final tumblers. He opened the heavy steel door and then, discreetly, he left. The box was large. It was not full of cash or bonds. It was not full of jewels. It contained only one thing, a simple, leather-bound journal and a single sealed envelope. My name was on the envelope, Lily. My hands were shaking. I, who had faced down a room of killers, was shaking because of an envelope. Giovanni stood in the doorway of the vault, a silent, supportive shadow. He would not enter. This was mine. I opened the letter, Helen's cursive. "My dearest Lily, if you are reading this, then you have done it. You have won. You have become the woman I saw in you when you were just a girl, the one who would not cry when she fell, but would just get up and brush the dirt off her knees. You have my money. You have my power. You have your vengeance. But I am leaving you one last thing, not a gift, a burden, a choice. The journal. It contains my true life's work. It is not about money, Lily. The money was just a tool. It is about control. The men you work with, Giovanni, Capelli, they think they run the world. They run a small, violent corner of it. What I built, it is larger. It is invisible. It is inside their systems. It is inside their governments. It is a network that does not answer to guns. It answers to information. Sebastian was a rat in my walls, but there are larger rats. Lily, kings, politicians, and they all have secrets. The journal is the key to that network. It is my real policy. It is my true revenge against a world that took your mother from me, that tried to take you. You have a choice. You can burn it, and live the life you have built with Giovanni. It is a good life, a powerful one. You will be safe. You will be happy. Or you can read it. You can take my real seat, not the one in Giovanni's office, but the one at the head of a table no one even knows exists. It is a lonely, dangerous life. It is a life from which there is no escape. I chose it. I do not know if I would wish it on you. But I know you, and I know you will not burn it. Be brave, my girl. The real fight has just begun. All my love, Aunt Helen. I stood in the cold vault, the letter trembling in my hand. I looked at the journal. It was thick. I did not open it. Not yet. I put the letter back in the envelope. I picked up the journal. I walked out of the vault. Giovanni was watching me. His light blue eyes were not assessing. They were patient. He did not ask what was in the letter. He did not ask about the journal. He simply looked at my face. "Are you all right?" he asked. I looked at the journal in my hand, the key to a world of shadows I had not even known existed, a world Helen had ruled. "I'm not sure I will ever be all right again," I said, "but I am ready." He nodded. A single, slow acknowledgement. He knew, without my saying a word, that my life had just changed again. He held out his arm, then let us go home. We flew back to Chicago. I did not open the journal on the plane. I held it in my lap. It was a physical weight, a promise, and a threat. We arrived at the mansion. It was late. The house was silent. Sophia had left a cold supper for us, but neither of us was hungry. Giovanni went to pour us a brandy. I walked into my office. Dante, my shadow, my guardian, was standing by his usual post in the hall. "Welcome home, Miss Lily. A package arrived for you." "I'm not expecting anything," I said, my mind still on Zurich. "It came by special courier." He said his voice was wrong. It was not flat. There was an edge. He handed me a simple, padded envelope, no return address. I took it into my office. I sat at my desk. The journal was beside me. I opened the envelope. Inside was a single photograph, a digital photo, printed on glossy paper. It was of a beach, a beautiful, tropical beach, with water so blue it hurt the eyes. And sitting on a lounge chair, smiling, holding a colorful drink with an umbrella in it, was Amelia. She looked, well, she was tan. Her blonde hair was lighter. She was wearing expensive sunglasses. She was not in a place where her skills were unhelpful. She was on vacation. She was not alone, sitting in the chair next to her. His face in shadow, but his build unmistakable, was a man I did not recognize. But in his hand he was holding a very specific old-fashioned gold coin, one with a crest, one like the one Helen had given me. My blood did not run cold. It did not freeze. It boiled. Giovanni's sent away had not been final. She had been intercepted, or she had been acquired by a rival, by someone else in Helen's shadow world. She was not a victim. She was not a prisoner. She was a commodity, and she had been purchased. Giovanni walked in, a glass of brandy in his hand. "Lily, you are pale." He saw the photograph. He put the brandy down. He picked it up. His face, his carved granite face, turned to stone. For the first time, I saw anger in him, a cold, deep, continental rage. "She was taken from my men," he said, his voice a low growl. "It was a failure." "No," I said. I stood up. I put my hand on the leather journal. "It was not a failure. It was a message." He looked at me. They are telling us they have her. I said, they are telling us they have a piece of Helen's world. They are telling us. They know about me. I looked at the photograph, at Amelia's smiling, treacherous face, at the gold coin. This was not an ending. This was not a plot twist. This was an invitation. I was not the weak woman in the motel. I was not the grieving widow. I was not even the woman in the red dress. I was Helen's heir, and the fight had just begun. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I am so curious. Where in the world are you listening from right now? Let me know in the comments. I would love to connect and share our thoughts. If you enjoyed this journey, please subscribe to my channel, Mafia Boss Stories, and like this video. It would also mean the world to me if you would support us by hitting the hype button, so this story can reach and be heard by so many more people.